So growing up is difficult within itself without putting HIV into the mix. And HIV is a kind of adversity that has come against us as human beings. And in thinking about adversity, I started thinking about adversity as something that is part of the human experience. And because it's part of the human experience, I started thinking about the hero that is hidden in every one of us. And that when we are chased or when there's something, a form of adversity that comes against us and that comes against our lives, a hero rises up within us. And there are things that we do that we ourselves do not know are capable of because of this thing that is coming against us. And when I started looking at people that were living with HIV, HIV came against their very existence and it threatened their very lives. And from that standpoint, they emerged into superheroes. So I saw a kind of transformation that I had never seen before, from ordinary people that were going about their lives doing ordinary things that were transformed into these extraordinary superhuman beings. And in pitching people that are living with HIV as superheroes, I then started thinking about HIV as a supervillain. And in looking at HIV as a supervillain, I started thinking about its invasion plan and how it employed the element of surprise, and that there was no policing agent, there was no NASA, there was no radar, no South African policing services, no FBI, CIA that detected its presence in our atmosphere, that its agenda or its invasion was detected on impact, and there was very little that we could do to ameliorate the problems or the damage. I started thinking about it strategically, and I said, what was its strategic plan? And in thinking about this, I realized that it went straight for the jugular, and it went for the immune system, and that meant that it immobilized the defenses of its opponent. And in immobilizing the defenses of its opponent, it ensured that if HIV doesn't take you out, then its associates, TB and other opportunistic infections, would take you out. And also, in deciding to strategically being hosted in the blood, it ensured that it employed, or it took the very human heart to pump it throughout the whole body, carrying out its invasion plan. It could have decided to be spread through any other organ, but it decided to be spread through the reproductive system. And I thought it must have been very aware of the pleasure principle, and that us as human beings would not be able to resist its mode of transmission, and also to pay it with reproduction. That is the very place where we reproduce as humanity. So it clearly must have had a Vision 2040 plan of not just taking out this current generation, but the generations that were yet unborn to time. So in looking at this and thinking about it that way, ordinary men and women, boys and girls that were going about their lives were suddenly transformed into these supers that had to take on HIV. I started thinking about the wrestling match, where in one moment, these young boys, young girls are being admonished not to try this at home, but then they are thrown into a wrestling match with death itself, and they're expected to fend for themselves without having any training. Ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you there was no script writer, and there was no assurance that they would make it out of their ring, or out of that ring, or that they would walk into the sunset with the girl or the boy. There were no simulations in this battle. They had to take on death without any stunt doubles, without stuntmen to take out the heavy punches for them. And HIV didn't just fight with them once in one big showdown between these superheroes and HIV, but every single day it woke up and it challenged them into this battle. And they quickly had to learn, and they quickly had to find out their Achilles heel and their kryptonite, and had to take ARVs every single day to ward it off. So they emerged into superheroes that were standing in battle with HIV. Whilst all this was going on, internal struggles were also going on. And the questions, why me? Particularly with the superheroes that I have had a chance to interact with, that are adolescents who find themselves positive, so much so as to inherit the struggle. they find that they're one in a family of 10 that find themselves positive, and they struggle with the anger, with the bitterness, the hatred, the thoughts of wanting to commit suicide, the thoughts of accepting themselves and this HIV diagnosis, and yet they do not wish this HIV diagnosis on anybody else. So they're struggling internally to accept this diagnosis. I started wondering to myself what it was about this whole situation that made us as humanity miss these superheroes, because nobody acknowledged them as super. They'd been in the ring, they'd wrestled with death, they're coming out, they're on top, they're alive, they are here today, but nobody had acknowledged them. And I realized that it was because of this misconception that we've romanticized death and getting into the ring with death, so much so that if superheroes are not looking or standing in sexy poses or fighting off death in a stylish way, we cannot and we do not recognize them. So when these supers came out of the ring with death and were expecting to be welcomed with a hero's welcome, with accolades and badges and fanfare, humanity met them with friendly fire instead, because they simply did not understand that they were super. So they were met with stigma, with alienation, with outcasting, with shame, because we simply did not understand that they were super. And the term friendly fire is borrowed from the military, where when soldiers are behind enemy lines, they all simply know that the enemy is in that direction. So they do not expect to be shot in the back because the enemy is in that direction. But clearly humanity does not understand who the enemy is where HIV is concerned. And I can clearly demonstrate this confusion in that when we say that a person is HIV positive, they say, I am HIV positive, and we say, you are HIV positive. And the terms I am and you are clear identity markers. So what we are simply saying is that the person is the HIV. So it's not surprising then that as humanity we fight against each other, or that we are put in this place to fight against these superheroes. So because of this fighting, these superheroes have had to camouflage themselves, or firstly put themselves in the suit of armor, a full iron suit of armor, to protect themselves from the hurt and the stigma that comes towards them, because we simply don't understand. They've had to develop super surveillance systems because they have to identify within a room who are the friendlies and who are the heroes, who are the friendlies and who are the hostiles. They also have to camouflage themselves in order to blend in, because if they do not do that, humanity would hurt them. Another aspect is about connection and isolation. Because, ladies and gentlemen, how do you connect with a fellow human being when what you carry has the potential of harming what you love? But the contradiction with connection is that when you connect, you have the greatest strength as a superhero to fight the battle. The connection is the very cause for the fight, but the connection is what makes you the most vulnerable to rejection and to heartache. Okay, so what we have here, ladies and gentlemen, are tag teams. Because simply what we have is a supervillain, HIV, that has announced itself, and superheroes that are in hiding because of the circumstances that I've spoken about earlier. And what HIV has done is it has formed a unified offensive against these superheroes that are defenseless and are by themselves. So when I look at such a situation, I remember my days when I used to watch wrestling, and the excitement I would feel when a sound would be heard and one of the wrestlers that were the good guys would come in to help the one guy who was being fought against by this tag team of people. And this is the case in the situation that is happening with people that are living with HIV, but the unfortunate thing is that sound is not coming because nobody is coming. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I've decided to be that sound and to lead you into thinking and into imagining what it would be like if we would bring these supers into one room so that we give them the opportunity to make a unified offensive against HIV. And I know what you're thinking, there are 35 million supers in the world. How are we going to bring them into the same room and launch this offensive. Physically, it's impossible, yes, but virtually it's not. Through a social network, which I've dubbed Positive Connections, because through this network, we have the opportunity of bringing all of these supers into one room so that they can share their experiences, so that they can give support to each other in a way that we, in most cases, cannot give them. This platform would not be just a place of interaction, but a place where, as humanity, we'll begin to bring an organized offensive against HIV. Think about what it would mean for a person who finds out for the first time that they are positive, and just by the click of a button or the downloading of a simple app, they can have access to other superheroes that have lived through this, who know what it means exactly to be positive. What it would also mean for organizations that have already been working with these supers for years and years to come together on this one platform and talk about their programs, and what it would mean in terms of the impact globally of reaching out to so many people, where in most cases geography would not allow us to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, for the first time, help me in honoring the hidden heroes of our generation, and join me in working towards positive connections. Thank you.